There's a wonderful support tool in town, one specially designed to take care of large chunks of work that are priorities. It's called Jira Service Management. Smaller, quick requests for help still go through the regular channels, but your larger work projects can have a special support tool all their own. In the past, ADOs reached out to teams for a variety of enterprise services through email, sending requests in Slack, creating requests in Jira, using issue collectors or templates in Confluence, and more. So many requests coming from so many tools. This can make it so unnecessarily challenging to manage and prioritize the requests. Jira Service Management, or JSM, has changed all that. It enhances the request intake process with one customizable portal that allows customers to submit their new intake requests. Now every request is entered and originates from the same place. Request intake is now manageable in terms of prioritization and approval process, thanks to JSM. JSM will only support intake processes and is not intended to replace existing support channels or help desks. Who should be using JSM? Any team that receives large work requests and numerous requests that need prioritization. How does it work? Your team designates an agent who works on incoming requests and communicates with customers. Other Jira users can collaborate on the submitted requests with the agent, but the agent is the licensed point of contact for working the team's JSM requests. Additionally, each team will need a project administrator who can access all JSM features and sets up the portal and request types. If your team would like to use JSM, then request access through the QualityNet JSM portal at https://servicedesk/customer/portal/2. Requests to access JSM are subject to approval. These are the details you'll need to provide: type of intake requests you will be gathering, who the agents and project admins will be, and standard Jira project configuration questions. You must also have CMS business owner backing and be ready to document the process you're requesting. Coming up next, a JSM user experience interview with Chantel Green, HARP project manager, formerly of Contract Onboarding. Welcome, Chantel. What is the project your team is using JSM for?
The onboarding team is a good example of this. They've actually now just completed launching 2 JSM forms. Before they entered what I call the JSM sphere, they were using an Excel spreadsheet as a way for the cores and the contract representatives that we worked with to submit onboarding information. And so when we say onboarding information, it's the process by which new vendors that are onboarding to CMS and will specifically be using CCSQ services. It's the process by which we enable those services for those vendors. And so they had been using a very long Excel spreadsheet, and it was coming in via email and Slack and carrier pigeon, everything, right? It was coming in every different which way. There was an approval process that was being managed in multiple different ways. And there was workflow that was being managed, up here. And so there was a lot of issues related to the way in which the process had evolved over time into this sort of Excel-driven spreadsheet. When I was assigned to the team, one of the decisions that had really already been made was that we were going to move that into the JSM sphere. And we were going to enable a word-enabled form for our users. So that's how we started going down that path.
Can you describe to me what the transition was like to move to JSM?
It was a little bit of a challenge, I think, because there were conceptual things that the team needed to understand. There are benefits and costs to moving to a new platform. There are ways in which to communicate the information. The Excel-driven form hadn't been reviewed and cleaned for a while, and so some of the questions were old, and so it was an opportunity to sort of refresh the process from the ground up.
Would you say your team was agreeable or resistant to the change?
They were very agreeable, but I think that in some ways they also didn't understand the whole scope of the change, because we are talking about a product that can not only just like consume information, right? It's not just a web-based form, but it also creates that Jira ticket at the back end, and it also has sort of an approval and a workflow that is built into the ticket. So there's a lot of functionality that underpins the JSM environment that the team wasn't aware of, they weren't used to. And so it was a theoretical shift as well, sort of a conceptual shift from a manually driven workflow, a manually driven process, into how can we leverage JSM to its fullest extent and gather the benefits for the team.
How long would you say the transition took?
The first form, probably 4 months, I'd say. But again, we were going from a sort of an old established process that was very manually driven. And we literally had to walk through not just what are the questions we want to put on the form, right? But how are we going to manage this form?
And what would you say the benefits have been?
So I think the benefits have been really, really nice. They've also, they're continuing to pay dividends. As the team becomes more and more familiar with the platform, I think they're finding ways conceptually to leverage it even more. But from a very high perspective, it helped us standardize our process. Even people who don't have JSM licenses, so long as they're licensed within Atlassian, we can communicate to them through this form, and they can respond back to us. It comes through their email, and they get a nice happy link that they can click in the email and respond back to questions we have. We have the approval process built into the form so that when our CMS lead approves us taking the action that's requested in that form, it's articulated in that form. We see it was approved by. We can see any back and forth, any questions, any responses. It presents itself as a full auditable action. So we could see the action from beginning to end. You can add subordinate or child tickets to that ticket, and you can add child or subordinate tickets on other boards. So if for some reason you need someone outside your team that doesn't have a JSM license to have visibility into a subordinate ticket, you can create it on a board through JSM. You can create a subordinate ticket onto another board that has more broader visibility. But I would say, it's aligning with CMS's strategic direction. It's allowed us to automate our workflow in a very streamlined fashion, and it gives us an auditability that we didn't. It's easy to use. All the work is in the setup, right? All the work is thinking through the process of what questions do we need? What format does that question come into? Is it a yes or a no? Is it required? Is it, a text-based question, that sort of thing? So all of the work is in the upfront. And big plug for the JSM team, Emma and her team, they hammer these out. They know their product, and they're very good at making sure people understand what's needed and how to do it.
Can you walk me through an actual demo of the project?
Okay. So the first one I clicked onto, this is the onboarding team. And then this is the HARP team. And you can see there's slightly different setup for each one. Neither bad nor good. The HARP team has 4 active JSM forms. The onboarding team has 2, and they're in tabs. So the one that we did originally was the onboarding intake form, or the first tab, and that was the first one we did. And what you'll find is there's a whole lot of functionality that we built into it. JSM does things slightly different. We're used to seeing web forms that have like that real little red asterisk that means it's required. For JSM, they do it opposite. It's opposite day. For them, it's required if you see nothing, and it's optional if you see this little optional thing. We ask for all this functional information that's so important to us, and we have, yes and no's, and we have date pickers, and then we have pick one options, and we have, this is a pick many, right? So you can pick as many as you want and add an attachment functionality, and you can add sort of free text functionality. The nice thing is the person who submits this form, they're never going to feel like they're in JIRA. It's very much a web-enabled form from their perspective. The user, the UI is very much sort of user-friendly. And so long as they have the person has an Atlassian standard user role in HARP, then they can get into submitting the form. And that's what we want. This back end that's where you can see the JSM license being exposed. Here's our approval process. And it shows that Rob approved it from a historical perspective. And you can see sub-features. These are what I call child links, and they're all on this QISO board, which is the onboarding team's board. The JSM board is CEO. So they assign tickets on this QISO board because others use these tickets. But the nice thing is you can create the tickets here. So you can come in and you can create a ticket in this JSM, which is really powerful because it means you can create all of your child tickets and manage your child tickets from here. You can see I could put it in depending, or, a different state, or I can assign or whatever, clone. So you have that full JIRA functionality. Another thing I wanted to highlight for you is they divided the responses, the user responses, thematically for the team. And so rather than have the entire form running at the very beginning here, they've given us just the thematic information that we needed.
Do you have an example of what the user sees on the other end rather than the JIRA ticket?
The user has the ability to consistently interact with the team through email. So this is where the user could come in and say, oh, forgot Slack, whatever. And they'd add the comment, this won't work because this is a resolved ticket. But that's how the user can consistently come in and communicate through this view request format. So the system is very sort of user-friendly when it comes to sort of non-licensed users. And then, of course, this person could also come in and view request and make comments if they wanted to. The user has the option of 1 to 5 stars of saying, good job. And again, that comes directly back to the team. They get to see, oh, I got 5 stars.
Who would you recommend JSM to?
I think it's a great tool. Any transactional work, there's opportunities. I've been happy to work with it.
Thanks, Chantel.
Yeah!